This is Doug with the Awakened by Yahuah group. I am with my brother Sam, my sister Kristen, my other sister Shoshana, and our sister Sally. And we are doing something new today. We are going to go and do a study about the Feast of Dedication in the book of Maccabees. There's 4 books of Maccabees, just for whoever's listening in on this recording. So here we go. Now we're going to be reading different versions of the Apocrypha. My brother Stan, he's going to be reading from the 1611 King James Apocrypha. Shoshana, my sister here, and our brother Dennis, they will be reading from the Sefer Apocrypha, and I believe Sister Kristen, if I'm not mistaken, will be also reading from the Sefer Apocrypha.
I
am. And our sister Sally will be taking notes and listening in with us. And so here we go. I think I'll start off, and since I have you guys on the computer, I'll just use my sword here on my phone. All right, so let me go to, actually, technically, do this also. All right, here we go. So I will be reading from the Septuagint version of the Apocrypha just to make it a little interesting. Whoever's listening in, short little history on the Septuagint. Around 200, 300 BCE, which is a couple hundred years before Yahushua even was, took flesh and came to the earth. That is around the time of the Septuagint being composed, and 70 scribes total translated a earlier Hebrew Tanakh, Hebrew Old Testament, into Greek. And so that's where we get the Septuagint today. Sir Lancelot Brenton, a British guy, pretty much translated it into English for the first time in the 1800s. So I'm going to be reading from that translation because I've noticed sometimes that it blends with the New Testament perfectly. And so just because it's, from that time period of Yahushua being on the earth, and obviously I believe that the disciples used the Septuagint back then. The Masoretic text, which is the Old Testament of most Bibles today, was not composed until 1,000 years after the Septuagint. So I'm going to be using that version of Maccabees 1, and here we go. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten or killed Darius, king of the Persians, and the Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth. And went through the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them, where he was yet alive, while he was yet alive. Okay, so let me see here. I just want to make sure I'm at the right verse. Okay, so we were at verse 6. Verse 7? All right, thank you. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then he died, and his servants bare rule everyone in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. Sounds familiar. There came out of them a wicked root. Sounds like the horn, the one horn that comes out of the other horns of Daniel.
Yeah.
Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome, and other versions of the Apocrypha will say a slave in Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. And in those days went there out of Yashraal wicked men, who pursued many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen. What does the Torah tell us? You're not supposed to do that.
No.
That are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had so much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances or the practices of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the set-apart covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have dominion of 2 realms. Interesting terminology, realms. Before he entered into Egypt with a great multitude of chariots and elephants and horsemen and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that Antiochus had destroyed or smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Yashraal and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar and the candlestick of light and all the vessels thereof. Basically, he took away the menorah. That's what it's describing.
Yeah.
And the table of the showbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and gold and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was a great mourning in Yashraal, in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned, the virgins and the young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women were changed. Every bridegroom took upon lamentation, and she sat in the marriage chamber and was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Yahudah, who came upon Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Yashraal. Verse 31, and when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children they took captive, and possessed the cattle. Then builded they built the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a transgressful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals, and when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Yashraal. Thus they shed innocent blood, on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. Whereupon the city was made a habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her. And her own children left her. Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt, as had been her glory. So was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. So this is a deception, telling everyone to be united. It's kind of like an NWO type of thing, where you're all one people, but under pretty much a falsehood. Verse 42 says, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed, according to the commandment of the king. And I want to stop at verse 42 real quick. And it seems like this is almost a partial fulfillment of Daniel 7, chapter 7, verse 25, where it says here, Daniel prophesying of this, and he shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the set apart ones of the Most High, and shall think to change times and law. And power shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and a half a time. So we see a partial fulfillment of this in 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse, I think it was 41. Yeah. So moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Yashraelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. Verse 44, for the king had sent letters to messengers unto Jerusalem and to the cities of Yahudah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary, and set apart people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols. I like the terminology of the Brennans. The terminology there, chapels of idols. What's a chapel in modern day? A church?
Yep.
It's pretty funny that Brenton would translate that as chapels. And sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, and that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, basically profanity, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. Now, this is very interesting. This sounds like another correlation with the Tanakh. Not trying to make it this long chapter, but this kind of reminds me of Jeremiah 23, verse 7 in the Septuagint. Hold on, is it Jeremiah 23 or is it, let's see, it says, those who devise schemes to make people forget my name for the worship of Baal. Let me see, let me just check this real quick. Those that make my people forget my name. Because this is an interesting correlation here. All right, so it's Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 27. Sorry for the wait, people that are listening to this recording. So the correlation there with that verse in Maccabees is that in Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 27 says, who devise that men may forget my law by their dreams, which they have told everyone to his neighbor, as their fathers forgot my name in the worship of Baal. So that's a correlation, Jeremiah 23:27 with 1 Maccabees. I believe I was in 1 Maccabees chapter 1 all the way up to 47, oh no, 48, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation. 49 says, to the end that they might forget the law. Okay, so the correlation was Jeremiah 23:27 with 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 49. To the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. Okay, so verse 50, and whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. So again, this seems like this could even correlate with revelations in the end times, that if they don't keep the ordinances of the beast or worship the beast, that they should be killed. So, verse 51, in the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Yahudah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them with everyone that forsook the law, so that they committed evils in the land and drove the Yashraelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor. Now let me just change the translation real quick because I want to see what succor actually means. So let me go to what's an easier translation, the web. Go to verse 4. Okay, cities of Yahudah, on every side they built idol altars. Hold on. Okay, so verse 53 in the web version of the Apocrypha says, and they made Yashrael to hide themselves in every place of refuge where they had. Okay, so they're just pretty much being scared off. Okay, so let's continue and go to verse 54. Now the 15th day of the month of Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar. So, wow, this is actually being called the abomination of desolation. And builded idol altars throughout the cities of Yahudah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law, wow, oh boy, which they had found, they burnt them with fire. Oh my goodness. Wow. And whosoever was found with any of the book of the testament, or if any committed to the law, the king's commandments was that they should put him to death. Thus did they by their authority unto the Yashraelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now the 25th day of the month, or basically the 25th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of Yahuah, at which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. And they hanged the infants upon their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Yashrael were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. Wherefore they rather died, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the set apart covenant. So then they died. And there was very great wrath upon Yashrael. And that is the end of chapter 1. Wow. Okay, that's a lot of correlations. So I see a lot of the Catholic Church in this chapter with the whole. Later on, we see in history that Emperor Constantine did a lot of these same things. Whoever kept the Sabbath, it was forcible by death when you don't keep the day of the sun. I'm pretty sure the Catholic Church after Constantine followed his decrees, and anyone that was found keeping the law of Yahuah would probably be killed. And so I think that's part of what you had with the Spanish Inquisition, and recently the Catholic Church actually asked for forgiveness. I forget which pope it was, but actually asked for forgiveness for killing thousands of true believers. And during what is known as the medieval dark times.
Yeah, just like the messengers wanted forgiveness for what they were doing. That doesn't mean they were changing. A lot of people don't know or don't understand that under most of the larger Catholic churches, there's still dungeons and torture chambers.
And there's still the leader of the Inquisition.
Yes.
That's who
Alberto Rivera revealed.
What's his name? The last Pope, Benedict XVI.
Oh.
That was his title before he became Pope. Head of the Inquisition.
Yeah. It's funny though that Alberto Rivera actually prophesizes that Benedict was actually not the last pope, but the pope that continues a short space before the last pope. So even like ministries like World's Last Chance, I don't know if you heard of them. They came out of 7-day Adventism and actually came into a more Hebraic understanding. You can find them on YouTube. They're called World's Last Chance, and they believe in flat Earth and a lot of the stuff we believe in. And they actually have a thing on their website that shows the kings of Revelations 13, and they go into how they believe all the popes until now, the last 10 popes are the 10 kings. That's their opinion, and they believe that the last king that Revelation talks about, that another shall arise, is Pope Francis, and that Benedict was the one that must continue a short space, a short time, which he did. Technically, he did fulfill that because he only was Pope for a very short time. He was like the shortest lasting Pope. And then all of a sudden, Pope Francis, he resigns on his own behalf, and then Pope Francis comes to be what Alberto Rivera reveals in his book. He believes Francis is the very last Pope. So
Yeah.
I found that interesting.
Yeah, we're definitely coming close to the Great Tribulation.
Age of forever.
Pope Francis is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say we kind of are in the Great Tribulation. It's just the beginning of sorrows is where we are. And
Yes.
chemtrails that they're pouring on us, and the laws that they're making for our ultimate demise.
Lawlessness.
It's all coming together.
I think it's like the birth pains. I would say we are in the very beginning stages of the tribulation period. What we're known as is Jacob's trouble, the birth pains, and how Yahushua says that, when you see all these things happen, know that they're the beginning of sorrows, the beginning of birth pains. So we're only in what would be known as the first stages. When all chaos is happening, that's when you're in like the middle of the tribulation period. When you start seeing like all this happening, and then the anti-Messiah, comes along. I do believe that he's going to come along and reveal himself. Nimrod will reveal himself and appear as JC, in my opinion, as Caesar Borgia, somehow. And, I believe that will be in the beginning of the tribulation period, because I think once that happens, it's going to kick off. Like Daniel 9:27 says, he stops a covenant in the middle of the week. And, it's going to be a fake covenant of peace, which is interesting because it seems like this chapter partially fulfills that when it talks about that he through his words, through his speech, brought peace, but it was deceit. So it seems like Antiochus is kind of like a template that the end times Nimrod is going to follow. He's gonna be a lot like this guy. He's gonna force people to be killed that want to keep the Sabbath, that don't want to eat unclean meats. Like the whole chapter was pretty much, that's what I got from it, was this is a template of what we need to look for in the end times, of what the anti-Messiah's character is going to be like. He's going to be flatteries. Like I think Brother Dennis said this. I think we read about this once with Brother Dennis. He talked about flatteries and how the anti-Messiah in Daniel, in the book of Daniel, talks about he's gonna understand dark sentences. He knows how to understand dark sentences. He will flatter many that break the covenant. I think it says in the book of Daniel, those that transgress the covenant, he will flatter. So he's going to be this guy that, pretty much compliments people for sinning. Pretty much what it's saying. He's going to be friends of transgressors and, encourage them to keep on sinning, basically. And so that's what I got so far from this chapter.
Yeah, so I'd like to read a little bit from 2 Thessalonians 2, if you don't mind.
Kristen was, I think Kristen wanted to bring up something just now.
Okay.
You can do that right after Kristen goes.
Yeah, just real quick, I wanted to mention in verse 21, it says, and entered proudly into the sanctuary and took away the golden altar and the menorah of light and all the vessels thereof. The menorah was 7 lamps, 7 lights. And I find it interesting, we haven't gotten there yet, but when we come to the Festival of Lights, which is celebrated by the Jews, otherwise known as the Synagogue of Satan, their menorah has 8 lights on it. So we know that the menorah was to represent the 7 feasts of Yahuah.
They actually have 9.
9.
9. You can look it up at I think on Google Images. I could probably look it up right now. Their menorah has 9 candlesticks, and it has the Star of Remphan right in the middle of it in Israel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
so
right.
the big giant one, like they show in Israel every year, like on postcards and stuff, it has like the so-called Star of David on it, and it has 9 candlesticks. So they're adding to the Torah. That's bad. That's like Yahuwah says, do not add to my word and do not take from it, so that you keep my commandments. So by adding and taking from it, you're actually transgressing his word. That's pretty much what he says in the Torah.
Yes, and as we know, their Talmud goes against the Torah. So they live by the Talmud, really.
Live by the mud.
Yeah, unfortunately. Can I read something? 2 Thessalonians 2 talks about the revealing of the man of sin or lawlessness. And I'm starting here in verse 3. Let no one deceive you in any way, because the falling away is to come first, and the man of lawlessness is to be revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called Elohim, or that is worshipped, so that he sits as Elohim in the Mishkan of Elohim, showing himself that he is Elohim. Do you not remember that I told you this while I was still with you? And now you know what restrains for him to be revealed in his time. For the secret of lawlessness is already at work, only until he who now restrains comes out of the midst. And then the lawless one shall be revealed, whom the master shall consume with the ruach of his mouth, and bring to naught with the manifestation of his coming. The coming is against the working of Satan with all his power, signs, and wonders of falsehood, and with all deceit of unrighteousness in those perishing, because they did not receive the love of the truth in order for them to be saved. And for this reason Elohim sends them a working of delusion for them to believe the falsehood, in order that all should be judged who did not believe the truth, but have delighted in unrighteousness. I just thought that went along with that.
Yeah, they're going to be swept away.
I was reading that to my kids today.
Mhm.
You know, and I find it very interesting that you just brought that up too, because in verse 3, how it says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition."
Yeah.
An actual man,
Mm-hmm.
and the
That's right.
spirit that dwells within him. And if any of you had recently heard, Pope Francis suddenly is talking about the devil and saying that he truly does walks amongst men, that he is a man, and that he should be feared, and that we should take it seriously. So that is just incredible, you know, because he is, I believe, the false prophet who is making way for the
Exactly.
Yep.
That's what we believe as well.
I
Well,
got
he is
something.
also
Ooh, my bad.
he is also the only pope that's ever been a Jesuit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's kind of interesting.
Yep.
But even in little small groups like ours, there's being falling away. The last group we were with, there was a falling away because they believed in men. They chose the writings of men and the words of men over the word of Elohim. And it just, I'm just seeing fall away because of clinging to men.
Yeah. Those people are being sifted.
Yes, we are.
I was just talking to Doug about this before we came on to Zoom, talking about those who cling to men and not to Yahuah.
Yeah.
No man. No man.
No.
The word of man will lead to the lake of fire.
Yes. Yes. Let Yahuah be true and every man a liar.
Hallelujah.
That's right.
You heard that, Doug? We were just talking about that before we came on Zoom, remember?
Yeah, I got something I wanted to share from that verse. I'm going to share my screen real quick. It's interesting how the restored name King James, instead of master for verse 8, actually puts Yahusha's name. Can you guys see this right here? In verse 8 it says, "And then shall the wicked one be revealed, whom Yahusha," well, they put Yahushua, "shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming." So the restored name King James, instead of the master, they actually put Yahusha's name there, which I really can appreciate with that translation. So I like that, and I also wanted to share something else too. Can you guys see this? This is what the menorah in Israel would be for their Hanukkah. They got the 9 candles and the Star of Remphan right there.
Yeah.
Still seeing the scripture.
So you got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the other side, and then the 1 on the star, which is really weird. So I just wanted to share that real quick. Whoever, never knew about that.
I didn't see that for some reason. I was still seeing the scripture.
Oh, okay. All right. Hold on a sec. I can put it right back on.
The Sefer also says Adonai Yahusha.
Interesting. Do you see it right now? The menorah? Yeah. So that's the picture I found on Google Images. That's their common menorah they have in Israel. So
very interesting. I had been around menorahs a good part of my life, being that I grew up with them in my home, and I forgot that yes, there are four. There are on either side, and the one in the middle, the eternal flame. And I just remembered that when I was very young, my mom and dad went to Israel, and when they were in Jerusalem, they bought a menorah. It was very, very beautiful. It was made of brass, and it was handcrafted and painted. And in the center were two doors, and you open the doors, and there was writing inside. And I have not yet come across that, but I'm sure within the next few weeks, I will. I'm interested in finding out what it says exactly.
Yeah.
And I will definitely be sure to share that with you.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. And I haven't thought about that in, oh my goodness, I don't know how long, but I'm sure there's a reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we continue in the next chapter?
Dennis, are you there?
This is a very long chapter. Most of them are.
yeah.
This is the next chapter is 70. I don't know if maybe Dennis and Shoshana might want to split it.
Yeah, we can.
35.
We'll split it. Under 35, we can do 35.
That's a great idea, Kristen. Great idea. Wow. I didn't realize these chapters were that long.
Did you volunteer me for something?
Yeah, both of them.
All right. So, yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Okay. Chapter 2. In those days arose Mattathayahu, the son of Yahuchanan, the son of Shimon, a priest of the sons of Yeraway. Yero, how you pronounce that? Yero. That's supposed to be a W sound.
What? I can't see what the ending of it is.
Well, that's a V, but it's supposed to be a W. Yariwa, I guess. From Jerusalem, and dwells in Modin. And he had 5 sons. Yahuchanan, called Kedis, Shimon, called Thasi, Yehuda, who was called Maccabee, Eleazar, called Abron, and Jonathan, whose surname was Aplis. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Yehuda and Jerusalem, he said, "Woe is me, wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people, and of the set apart city, and to dwell there, when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers. Her temple is become as a man without esteem. Her esteemed vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets. Her young men with the sword of the enemy. What nation has not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? All her ornaments are taken away. Of a free woman she has become a bondservant. And behold, our sanctuary, even our beauty and our esteem, is laid waste, and the other people have profaned it. To what end, therefore, shall we live any longer? Then Mattathiah and his sons rent their clothes and put on sackcloth and mourn very sore. In the meanwhile, the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city Modin to make them sacrifice. And when many of Yisrael came unto them, Mattathiah also and his sons came together. Then answered the king's officers and said to Mattathiah on this wise, You are a ruler and an honorable and great man in this city, and strengthened with sons and brethren. Now therefore come, you first, and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done. Yes, and the men of Yehudah also, and such as remain in Jerusalem. So shall you and your house be in the number of the king's friends. And you and your children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards of men. Then Mattathiah answered and spoke with a loud voice, Though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away every one from the faith of their fathers, and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers. For be it that we should forsake the Torah and the ordinances, we will not hearken to the king's words, to go from our faith, either on the right hand or the left. Now when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Yehudim in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment. Which thing, when Mattathiah saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his mind trembled, neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar. Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time. And the altar he pulled down. Thus dwelt he jealously for the Torah of Elohim, like as Phinehas did unto Zimri. This is Phinehas did unto Zimri, the Moabite, the son of Shalom. And Mattathiah cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, Whosoever is zealous of the Torah and maintains the covenant, let him follow me. For he and his sons fled into the mountains, and left all that ever they had in the city. Then many that sought after justice and judgment, sought after righteousness, went down into the wilderness to dwell there, both they and their children and their women and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them. Now when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem, in the city of Daud, that certain man who had broken the king's commandment, were gone down into the secret places in the wilderness. They pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on the Shabbat, of course. And they said to them, Let that which you have done hitherto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and you shall live. But they said, We will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Shabbat. So then they gave them the battle with all speed. Howbeit they answered them, No, neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they lay hid. and I'll let you finish that.
Okay. But said, let us die, all in our innocency. Heaven and earth will testify for us that you put us to death wrongfully. So they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their women and children and their cattle, to the number of 1,000 people. Now when Yahuah and his friends understood thereof, they mourned for them right sore. And one of them said to another, if we all do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and Torah against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth. At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Shabbat, we will fight against him. Neither will we die all, as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places. Then came there unto him a company of Hazadeus, who were mighty men of Israel, even all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the Torah. Also, all that they that fled for persecution joined themselves unto them, and were a stay unto them. So they joined their forces and smote sinful men in their anger, and wicked men in their wrath. But the rest fled to the heathen for help. Then Yahuah and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars, and what children soever they found within the coast of Israel uncircumcised, those they circumcised valiantly. They pursued also after the proud men, and the work prospered in their hand. So they recovered the Torah out of the hand of the other people, and out of the hand of kings. Neither suffered they the sinner to triumph. Now, when the time drew near that Yahuah should die, he said unto his sons, now has pride and rebuke gotten strength, and the time of destruction and the wrath of indignation. Now therefore, my sons, be you zealous for the Torah, and give your lives for the covenant of your fathers. Call to remembrance what acts our fathers. So shall you receive great honor and an everlasting name. Was not Abraham found faithful in temptation, and it was imputed to him for righteousness? Joseph, in the time of his distress, kept the commandment and was made Lord of Mitzrayim. Pinchas, our father, in becoming zealous and fervent, obtained the covenant of an everlasting priesthood. Yahusha, for fulfilling the word, was made a judge in Israel. Caleb, for bearing witness before the assembly, received the heritage of the land. Daud, for being merciful, possessed the throne of an everlasting kingdom. Eliyahu, for being zealous and fervent for the Torah, was taken up into the heavens. Hanan Yahu, Azar Yahu, and the Mia Sharel, by believing, were saved out of the flame. Daniel, for his innocency, was delivered from the mouth of lions. And thus consider you throughout all ages that none that put their trust in him shall be overcome. Fear not then the words of a sinful man, for his esteem shall be dung and worms. Today he shall be lifted up, and tomorrow he shall not be found, because he is returned unto his dust, and his thought is come to nothing. Wherefore you, my sons, be valiant, and show yourselves men in the behalf of the Torah, for by it shall you obtain esteem. And behold, I know that your brother Shimon is a man of counsel. Give ear unto him always. He shall be a father unto you. As for Yahudah, Maccabee, he has been mighty and strong, even from his youth up. Let him be your captain, and fight the battle of the people. Take also unto you all those that observe the Torah, and avenge you the wrong of your people. Recompense fully the heathen, and take heed to the commandments of the Torah. So be blessed then. He blessed them, and was gathered to his fathers. And he died in the 146th year, and his sons buried him in the sepulchres of his fathers at Modin, and all Israel made great lamentation for him.
That fills in some gaps, don't it?
Yeah, sure does. Kind of brings us up to date.
I found a little nugget I want to bring up. Very interesting that, as you can see here, in my Septuagint, where you read Yahusha, they actually put the J name there. So that's kind of a testimony that they knew the name of the Messiah was going to be Yahusha, because already they're changing the name of Yahusha to Jesus in the Septuagint. So already they realize that this is prophetic. This is not just talking about the Son of Nun, because if you read that verse in the Septuagint, it says that for Yahusha fulfilling the word became a judge in Israel. Was Yahusha the Messiah a judge when he was living? Now, obviously, this is prophetic, because if Yahusha is the name of Messiah, this could also be applied to Yahusha becoming a judge of Israel. And we know that he is going to be the judge when we are resurrected. We will have to go before the judgment seat of Messiah. So this possibly could even be a testimony to Jews to that this is messianic. This is talking about future foretelling of the Messiah named Yahusha being a judge of Israel, a judge of Yashrael, and basically fulfilling the word, because it says in Matthew chapter 5, says, I have not come to destroy the law and the prophets, but to fulfill. So possibly Yahusha read the book of Maccabees and knew what he was saying by saying that. So I wonder if the same word fulfill in Maccabees is the same word they're using for fulfill in Matthew 5:17-21. That would be something interesting to look up. Kind of sounds like Yahusha's claiming to be the Yahusha in Maccabees that it's talking about.
And surely he is.
I found it interesting. A lot of cross-references I found was for Phineas. Phineas, son of Eleazar, is the one who killed an Israelite man for coming into a pagan woman. He was the one that had the spear. I think it's in the book of Judges, and he killed a man for laying with a pagan woman, a Midianite woman who was not part of Israel, who was not in covenant with Yahuah. So
I think it's in Numbers.
Yes. I need to get more.
Oh, okay, Numbers. My bad about that. So I know I definitely read about it. It's all about Baal of Peor and how these women got them to sacrifice to the idol Baal of Peor, and supposedly the Balaam was the one that did that and pretty much tricked the Israelite men into coming to these women. And then Phineas, he had the zeal for Yahuwah's commandments, and just he was like, enough is enough.
Yeah, he ran them both through, the man and the woman.
And I found some interesting references in this chapter of verse 21 to 22 is referencing to the commandments. And let me see here if I can find that real quick. It's chapter 2 of Maccabees, verse 21 and 22. Yah forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's words to go from our faith or religion, is in the Septuagint, either on the right hand or the left. So this is referencing to Yahuwah himself, telling them, don't turn to the right or the left. Stay basically the narrow path, like right there. And the book of Joshua references that. That's where it's first spoken, is Joshua telling you, I am giving you these words to keep all the words of this law. You are not to turn right or to left. And so Yahusha, son of Nun, is chosen by Yahuwah to give the law again to the people after Moses dies. And so he's like the successor, the son of Nun. He's literally, and so he's one of the guys Yahuwah uses to prophetically foretell of Yahusha. There's two Yahushas in the Old Testament. Zechariah 6 is Yahusha, son of Jehozadak, who prophetically, his name is the branch. So Yahuwah tells you specifically that is the name of my son, the Messiah, is Yahusha, because he says, put a crown. Let me just go to that real quick and do a share screen real quick and go to, I guess I'll do the Restore Name King James, and do Zechariah 6, I believe it's verses 11 to 12. And let me make sure I'm on shared screen here. And go here. Here we go. Okay, so Zechariah chapter 6, verse 11 in Restore Name King James says, then take silver and gold and make crowns and set them upon the head of Yahusha, son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and speak to him, saying, thus speaks Yahuwah Yod-Heh Uah-Heh, right here, of hosts, saying, behold, the man whose name is the branch, in capitals, all caps, the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of Yod-Heh Uah-Heh, Yahuwah. So that is pretty much the other Yahusha that prophetically foreshadows Yahusha coming.
Yeah, read the verse. Continue, Doug. Read verse 8.
All right. Okay, so we're now in chapter 3. Is this another large chapter, Kristen? Or all right, so let's see who hasn't read yet. Trying to think. So Shoshana has read. Dennis has read. I've read. Sam, I don't think you have read yet. Kristen, I don't think you have read. So I don't know if you guys want to share for this chapter.
I can read it.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be reading from the Sefer. Okay, chapter 3, verse 1. Then his son Yehuda, called Maccabee, rose up in his stead, and all his brethren helped him, and so did they all that held with his father, and they fought with cheerfulness the battle of Yasharal. So he got his people great honor, and put on a breastplate as a giant, and girt his warlike harness about him, and he made battles protecting the host with his sword. In his acts he was like a lion, and like a lion's whelp roaring for his prey. For he pursued the wicked and sought them out, and burnt up those that vexed his people. Wherefore the wicked shrunk for fear of him, and all the workers of iniquity were troubled, because Yeshua prospered in his hand. He grieved also many kings, and made Yaakov glad with his acts, and his memorial is blessed forever. Moreover, he went through the cities of Yehudah, destroying the wicked out of them, and turning away wrath from Yasharal, so that he was renowned unto the utmost part of the earth, and he received unto him such as were ready to perish. Then Apollonius gathered the other people together, and a great host out of Shamaron, to fight against Yasharal. Which thing when Yehudah perceived, he went forth to meet him, and so he smote him and slew him. Many also fell down slain, but the rest fled. Wherefore Yehudah took their spoils, and Apollonius' sword also, and therewith he fought all his life long. Now when Saron, a prince of the army of Aram, heard say that Yehudah had gathered unto him a multitude and company of the faithful to go out with him to war, he said, I will get me a name and honor in the kingdom, for I will go fight with Yehudah, them that are with him, who despise the king's commandment. So he made him ready to go up, and there went with him a mighty host of the wicked to help him, and to be avenged of the children of Yasharal. And when he came near to the going up of Bet Sharon, Yehudah went forth to meet him with a small company, who, when they saw the host coming to meet them, said unto Yehudah, how shall we be able, being so few, to fight against so great a multitude and so strong, seeing we are ready to faint with fasting all this day? Unto whom Yehudah answered, it is no hard matter for many to be shut up in the hands of a few, and with the Elohim of heaven it is all one, to deliver with a great multitude or a small company. For the victory of battle stands not in the multitude of a host, but the strength comes from heaven. They come against us in much pride and iniquity to destroy us, and our women and children, and to spoil us. But we fight for our lives and our Torah. Wherefore Yahuwah himself will overthrow them before our face. And as for you, be not afraid of them. Now as soon as he had left off speaking, he leapt suddenly upon them, and so Saron and his host was overthrown before him. And they pursued them from the going down of Bet Sharon unto the plain, where were slain about 800 men of them, and the remnant fled into the land of the Pelishtaim. Then began the fear of Yehudah and his brethren, and an exceeding great dread to fall upon the nations round about them, insomuch as his fame came unto the king, and all nations talked of battles of Yehudah. Now when King Antiochus heard these things, he was full of indignation. Wherefore he sent and gathered together all the forces of his realm, even a very strong army. He opened also his treasure and gave his soldiers pay for a year, commanding them to be ready whensoever he should need them. Nevertheless, when he saw that the money of his treasures failed, and that the tributes in the country were small, because of the dissension and plague which he had brought upon the land in taking away the Torah, which had been of old time, he feared that he should not be able to bear the charges any longer, nor to have such gifts to give so liberally as he did before. For he had abounded above the kings that were before him. Wherefore, being greatly perplexed in his mind, he determined to go into Persia, there to take the tributes of the countries and to gather much money. So he left Lysias, a nobleman and one of the blood royal, to oversee the affairs of the king from the river Perath unto the borders of Mitzrayim, and to bring up his son Antiochus until he came again. Moreover, he delivered unto him the half of his forces and the elephants, and gave him charge of all things that he would have done, as also concerning them that dwelt in Yehudah and in Jerusalem. To wit, that he should send an army against them to destroy and root out the strength of Yasharal and the remnant of Jerusalem, and to take away their memorial from that place, and that he should place strangers in all their quarters and divide their land by lot. So the king took half of the forces that remained and departed from Antioch, his royal city, the 147th year, and having passed the river Parah, he went through the high countries. Then Lysias chose Ptolemy, the son of Dorymenes, Nicanor, and Gorgias, mighty men of the king's friends, and with them he sent 40,000 footmen and 7,000 horsemen to go into the land of Yehudah and to destroy it as the king commanded. So they went forth with all their power and came and pitched in Yemaim, in the plain country. And the merchants of the country, hearing the fame of them, took silver and gold very much with servants, and came into the camp to buy the children of Yasharal for slaves. A power also of Aram and the land of the Pelishtim joined themselves unto them. Now when Yehudah and his brethren saw that miseries were multiplied, and that forces did encamp themselves in their borders, for they knew how the king had given commandment to destroy the people and utterly abolish them, they said one to another, let us restore the decayed fortune of our people, and let us fight for our people and the sanctuary. Then was the assembly gathered together, that they might be ready for battle, and that they might pray and ask mercy and compassion. Now Jerusalem lay void as a wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. The sanctuary also was trodden down, and aliens kept the stronghold. The heathen had their habitation in that place, and joy was taken from Yaakov, and the pipe with the harp ceased. Wherefore Yasharal assembled themselves together and came to Mitzpah, over against Jerusalem, for in Mitzpah was the place where they prayed aforetime in Yasharal. And then they fasted that day, and put on sackcloth, and cast ashes upon their heads, and rent their clothes, and laid open the Sefer of the Torah, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. They brought also the priests' garments, and the firstfruits, and the tithes, and the Nazarene they stirred up, who had accomplished their days. Then cried they with a loud voice toward heaven, saying, what shall we do with these, and whither shall we carry them away? For your sanctuary is trodden down and profaned, and your priests are in heaviness and brought low. And lo, the heathen are assembled together against us to destroy us. What things they imagine against us, you know. How shall we be able to stand against them, except you, O Elohim, be our help? Then sounded they with shofars and cried with a loud voice. And after this, Yehudah ordained captains over the people, even captains over thousands, over hundreds, and over 50s, and over 10s. But as for such as were building houses, or had betrothed women, or were planting vineyards, or were fearful, those he commanded that they should return, every man to his own house according to the Torah. So the camp removed and pitched upon the south side of Yemaim. And Yehudah said, arm yourselves, and be valiant men, and see that ye be in readiness against the morning, that ye may fight with these nations that are assembled against us to destroy us and our sanctuary. For it is better for us to die in battle than to behold the calamities of our people and our sanctuary. Nevertheless, as the will of Elohim is in heaven, so let him do. Oh my goodness, it's hard to not get emotional reading this, you know? It's like these are our people. This is our history. This is what we're fighting for today. You know, there's nothing new under the sun, and here we are entering into this time again. Wow. It's like you can almost like, play it in your mind, like watching a movie, being there and seeing this. And it's so it's so sad and disheartening, yet so beautiful at the same time. Those who have their strength in their strength is in Yahuah, and he will provide them, from heaven. He will destroy those who are against their faith. But they are afraid, they're fighting to the death to stand for righteousness and for the Torah, for Yahuah.
It's amazing that most people here in the United States don't have a clue who they are. Our enemies know who we are. Most people here think they're Gentiles.
Well, I think a lot of that also comes from the Jews with their term goyim, the goy, and bringing deception through their Talmud, and
Yes.
I think that's brought a lot of confusion. And there are those who they say they're Jewish and they truly have no idea of any of this, just as many Christians and Catholics who have no idea of the truth in the scriptures. They don't understand what they are following. They think they're following truth by following the word of the men who preach it to them. They have no idea.
It's so true.
I found a correlation in verse 10. It reminded me of what's going to happen with the Gog and Magog, Armageddon war, because it says that all the nations round about attacked Israel. And so it kind of got me thinking, oh, wow, so that's Ezekiel 38 right there, where it talks about that in the end times that all the nations of the earth, all the nations from the north are going to attack Jerusalem, attack Israel, and pretty much attack us, is the way I look at it, is that because in chapter Ezekiel 38, real quick, I'll show you guys with my screen share, it actually says his people, Israel. So it's not talking about a physical nation. It's not talking about, so let me do this real quick with my screen share. Let me go to Ezekiel real quick for chapter 38. And okay, so it says, the prophecy against Gog, and the word of Yahuah came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog in the land of Magog, Rosh, prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say to him, Thus says Yahuah Elohim, behold, I am against you, Rosh, prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will gather you and all your host, horses and horsemen. This is like verbatim copy of what we just read in Maccabees, like the wording. All wearing breastplates with a great multitude, shields and helmets and swords, Persians and Ethiopians and Libyans, all with helmets and shields, Gomer, and all belonging to him, the house of Torgama, from the end of the north, and all belonging to him, and many nations with you. Be thou prepared, prepare yourself, you and all your multitude that is assembled with you, and you shall be to me for a guard. He shall be prepared after many days, and shall come at the end of years, and shall come to a land that is brought back from the sword, when the people are gathered from many nations. This is telling us right here what the context is. The people are gathered from many nations against the land of Israel, which was entirely desolate, and he is to come forth out of the nations, and they shall all dwell securely. So this is talking about us gathering from all the other nations, Israel being gathered into the land of Israel. And you shall go up as rain shall arrive as a cloud to cover the land. There shall be you and all that are about you, and many nations with you. Thus says Yahuah Elohim, it shall also come to pass in that day that thoughts shall come up into your heart, and you shall devise evil devices. And you shall say, I will go up to the rejected land. I will come upon them that are at ease and tranquility and dwelling in peace, all inhabiting a land in which there is no wall, no bars, nor have they doors, to seize plunder and to take their spoil, to turn my hands against the desolate land that is now inhabited, and against a nation that is gathered from many nations. Boom. It's telling you that that's the nation of Yashrael is going to be gathered from many other nations.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
So to me, that's the Trojan horse right there for people that believe that it's talking about the state of Israel. Can't be, because it says it's people from many other nations that become one nation. So obviously, in context, it's talking about us.
this is
And
talking
so,
about after the
Oh,
so that kind of brought it up back to me with with that verse, chapter 3, verse 10 of Maccabees, talking about all these nations attacking Israel. That's what brought up Ezekiel 38 to me. So it kind of sounds like the Battle of Armageddon almost.
I believe this Ezekiel 38 is actually a war that happens right after the 1,000 years of peace are finished. And that's when Yahuah himself says, all right, I know you're against me. Go ahead and come against my people. And these hordes of Gentiles come against Israel, and he destroys them. He wipes them out.
And for the precept for that being the Battle of Armageddon, you can actually find that. I believe it's Revelation chapter 21 goes with that, where it says, after the 1,000 years were ended, the devil was loosed out of his chamber to deceive the nations, and it says that he gathered all the corners of the earth to a place called Gog Magog for the battle of that great day, which we know we know terminology wise would be the Battle of Armageddon. So that great battle at the end, after the 1,000-year reign, after the millennial, there's going to be a battle of Armageddon where all the ends of the earth are going to be gathered by Satan himself to attack us. That's his end game. He wants to get all the nations to believe that they're going to fight against Yahuwah and Yahusha. And you can actually, there's a prophecy about that in Psalms chapter 2 that we've read before, where it says, why do the nations rage and imagine a vain thing to make war with Yahuwah and his Messiah? They're going to willingly try to fight Yahuwah and Yahusha. They think that they can win.
Yeah. How stupid is that?
This is why Satan must be released after the 1,000 years to instigate that war.
Yeah, it says to deceive the nations. So they're deceived. They think that they can actually win. That's what the Illuminati tells their little puppets. And, that Lucifer is going to win. He's going to win the Battle of Armageddon. We're going to take over heaven, just like Nimrod to all his little lackeys. Oh yeah, we're going to take over Yahuwah's throne. We're going to get in there. You can read about that in the book of Jasher. He talks. That was their intention with building the Tower of Babel. Nimrod wanted to kill Yahuwah, wanted to kill all the host of heaven, so that he could set up his own gods up there and be God up there.
Yeah.
And that's, Nimrod has that spirit in him. He has the spirit of Satan in him, wanting to be like Yahuwah and wanting to take Yahuwah's place.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say that I find verse 43 and 44 to be quite beautiful. 43, they said one to another, let us restore the decayed fortune of our people, and let us fight for our people in the sanctuary. Then was the assembly gathered, and that they might be ready for battle, and that they might pray and ask mercy and compassion. And it's like so sad, but so incredible. They knew what they had to do, and that they sought, Yahuwah before entering into that battle. They knew that they were seeking righteousness and to avenge their people, and I think these are things that we need to pay attention to in the times to come, because, you know, we have no idea how we will be called, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But we do know we will be asking for Yahuwah to guide us and to grant us mercy and compassion in those days, because we may, you know, do things that we never imagined doing.
This is true. Actually, Daniel 11 speaks of those who know their Elohim will do great exploits.
Yeah. Just like what we heard here.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
It's so crazy how the book of Maccabees so far pretty much is partially fulfilling everything Daniel was saying before this was happening. Like pretty much the first 2-3 chapters, it's fulfilling the big horn. I mean the little horn that comes out of the other horns. So I kind of find it interesting. It's like it's actually like fulfilling what he said beforehand, and it's pretty much the Antiochus Epiphanes. I like to think of him as that little horn that comes out of the other horns, because the first chapter we read, we had Alexander the Great, the he-goat. From him came up those other horns, those other canes, and then from those other canes, a little horn, Antiochus Epiphanes, came. So it's really interesting how it was being fulfilled already, what he was saying, and not too long after. Like the Maccabean revolt, I think, was like around the 70 years of Daniel, if I'm not mistaken. So it was not too far after.
And what is the scripture when Yahushua says that we will do greater works than he?
Let me see here.
I've often wondered about that, because we're not able to pronounce people well in his name.
Mm-hmm.
We have tried it.
Can't do it.
Yeah, it's John 14:12.
Yeah, I just found it. Yeah.
This is really controversial because it's like, how can we do stuff that's greater than Yahusha when we're flesh. We're not divine like he is. We're not a deity like him. Like it's hard for me to wrap my mind around how someone in our human carnal state could possibly do something greater than him. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the context of what he's actually saying. Like,
I feel the same way.
like that doesn't make sense to me. It's like, I don't know. Well, it says, he that believes on me, the works that I do shall he do also. And greater works than these shall he do. So I'm guessing Yahushua's talking about the works that he's doing at that moment. I don't think this in context would include walking on water, raising that. So gotta be careful with the context too, because we as carnal fleshy beings, it's impossible to do some of the stuff he did. Like he raised Lazarus from the dead. No human being can do that on their own. No human being without technology, without any assistance, can just be like, Lazarus, get up. Like, no one could do that. So
only Yahuwah can do it.
I think only in context he has to be talking about a specific works that he's doing at that moment. That's the only thing that would make sense, is that he's talking about certain works that he's done that we would be able to do them.
Not really, because there is a scripture that tells us that we will do these things. These signs shall surely follow, and that includes the dead, the raising the dead, and the sick shall be made well. I can't turn to it right now, but you know the scripture.
Yeah, I believe in that. Through him we can do miracles and stuff like that, but I definitely still believe there's a limitation to what we can do
We
in
can
our,
do nothing.
in our
Of ourselves, we can do nothing.
Even Yahushua said that. He himself, by himself, can do nothing. God can in chapter 5:30.
But he says in verse 13, after the verse you read, whatsoever you ask in my name, that I shall do, in order that the Father might be esteemed in the Son. So
Possible.
there is a time when we will be doing these things. And I believe that this is part of the information we're lacking, that the Catholic Church has managed to remove. Key information, yes, that we need to connect with the Ruach in a way to pronounce people well or rise up from the dead. We should be doing these things, but they've taken away the information that